We're going to talk a little bit about Parshas Vayeitzei, which we'll read in Shem this Shabbos. And the psukim in Perek Chav Ches will focus our attention on Tet Zayin and Yud Ches. The psukim describe Yaakov Avinu, waking up from his sleep. Vayikatz Yaakov mishnaso vayomer achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. Rashi says she'ili yadati lo yashanti b'makom kadosh kazeh. So Yaakov, only after he wakes up from his dream, declares that I didn't recognize the sanctity of this place. Had I known, Rashi says, I would not have slept there. But then, if you look two psukim later, it says, Vayashkem Yaakov baboker. And that seems to be implying that he went to sleep, and then he woke up the next day. And then the psukim go ahead and tell us that he built a matzeva. Now, if he already knew that this was a Beis Elokim, why would he go back to sleep again? And the Ramban actually brings a Pirkei Rabbi Elazar on the pasuk Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso that was in the morning. Hishkim Yaakov Aboker b'pachad gadol v'yomar Beiso shel Kadosh Baruch Hu b'makom hazeh shenemar Vayira v'yomar Manora hamokom hazeh. Mikana tolomed shekol mispal b'Yushalayim kilu mispal lifnei kisei hakavod sheshar shamayim hu pasuach lishmoa tfilosin shel Yisrael shenemar v'zeh shar shamayim. So the Ramban gives us an answer that in fact Yaakov didn't go back to sleep again. That wouldn't have made any sense. But again, it's very strange because the Ramban is now combining these two psukim together as if they were one. Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso and Vayashkem Yaakov Aboker are all one and the same. That Hishkim Yaakov Aboker, and he understood that Manora Hamokom Hazeh, that this is a very holy place. It's Beiso Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's the Shar Shamayim. But yet in the psukim, it seems like there's a separation here. There's Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso, and then he declares Achein, etc. Anochi ol yadati, and then Vayashkem Yaakov baboker. Well, what's the repetition here? Unless he went to sleep. Now the Mefarshim ask a question on Vanochi lo yadati, and the way Rashi interprets it, Ilu yadati lo yashanti mokom kodesh zeh. Based on the Gemara Chulin Adaf Tzadi Aleph Amid Beis, it says there that before he went to sleep, Yaakov Avinu already knew that this makom was Har Moriah. And Chazal say Kimoto lecharon, already when he came to Charan, Omar Efshar Avarti al makom shespalu avosav anilo espalalti. He realized that he had passed the place where his avos, his father and grandfather had prayed, and therefore Kadyoev Daite Lemeheder, when he finally decided to go back and backtrack to get back to that place, then Kaftzale Ara, he had Kvitz Saderech and Miad Vayifka B'Makom. So if Yaakov Avinu knew that he was going to that Makom Kadosh, he was going back to Har Moriah, then why would he go to sleep there at all? So here in the Shalmei Nochem, he quotes Rab Shaul Notazon, the Baal Shaul Umeshiv, from the city of Lvov, who wrote a book called Divrei Shaul. And he writes beautifully. He says, "The Hina yesh shnei inyoni kedusha, yesh kedusha shanachnu mekadshem es hamokom." Like for example, the Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash, we build a Beis HaMikdash ma'at. We dedicate it and single it out to study there and to pray there, and then it becomes kadosh. So the place in and of itself doesn't really have its own inherent latent kedusha, we are mekadesh it. And Yaakov Avinu thought that Har Moriah was sanctified through the tefillos of his forefathers, of his father and his grandfather. He didn't realize that this makom was mechuvan, it corresponded to the Migdash Shel Mala, and it didn't have to be sanctified by our sanctification to be mekadesh the makom. It had its own inner innate sanctity. He went to sleep there, not knowing, not realizing that this place was mechuvan keneged the Migdash Shel Mala. So he went to sleep there, thinking that the avos had been mekadesh the makom, and that gives it the status of beis hadrabanan, like a beis hamedrash where you're allowed to sleep. But during his sleep, he had the dream, and it was revealed to him that this was Shari Shamayim. And Rashi says in Pasuk Yud Zayin, "V'zeh Shari Shamayim, the mechuvan keneged Migdash Shel Mala." It corresponds to the Beis Hamikdash upstairs in Shamayim. Im Kain says the Baal Sholem Meshiv, "Ikar Shefa Kedusha Nimshach Min Shamayim." The Kedusha already comes down from Shamayim, not through the Maisa of Adam. I didn't know that the Shem, that Hashem is already in this Makom, vesting it with inherent Kedusha, and I didn't know that. Iliyadati lo yashanti sham. So Yaakov certainly knew that this was a Makom Kadosh. He just thought that the source and the origin of the Kedusha was the tefillos of the Avos. They designated this area as a Beis HaTefillah, and that's what sanctified this Makom. And he thought that that would be enough to allow him to sleep there. But what happened is that Yaakov had a chidush. What was a chidush to Yaakov was that since he had this prophetic vision, he knew that the Kedusha is inherent in the place, not that it's been sanctified, but etzem ha'makom u'kadosh me'ikara, and therefore he's not allowed to sleep there. Now let's see if we can build a little bit on this Divrei Shaul, and we want to invoke a principle of the Meshech Chochmah. The pasuk says, this is pasuk Yud Gimel, Vehine Hashem nitzav olav. And then in pasuk Tezai, Vayomer Achein Yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. And for the first time, it says Hashem's name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That name of Hashem, that holy name, was never revealed to the Avos. And in Parshas Vayera, beginning of Vayera in Shmos, it says, Ushmi Yud Kei Vav Kei lo nodati lahem. And Rashi explains, based on a Maimer Chazal, lo nikarti lahem b'midas amitu shali, sholeh nikra shmi Yud Kei Vav Kei. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not Megala himself to the Avos with the midah of Havaya of Yud Kei Vav Kei, but rather the midah of Kel Shakai. So Yitzchak transmitted to Yaakov only the midah of Shakai, of Hashem. But in the Mar Nevuah of the Sula Mutzav Arza, what became revealed to Yaakov was the midah of Shem Havaya of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Ramban there in Parshas Va'era says, V'hine Omer Elokim Nir'esi la'avos b'koach yadai asher ani shoded bo hamazolos v'ozer lebechiri aval b'shmi shel yud kei vav kei asher bo nia kol havos or kol havaya lo nodati lehem livro lehem chadoshos b'shini atolodos. So the Shem Shindal Yud is the Shem that's shayach to the Hanhoga of Hashem Yisparach in the world, B'tocha Olam. That's the way that God shines His providence on people through the world of nature. But the Midah, the Shem Havaya, that Midah belongs to the beginning of the Bria. And that's the way Hashem created the world. And even today, the Creator creates Havayos Chadoshos. He changes Teva and he creates new things, and that's Yud Kei Vav Kei. So now we go back to the Mar Nevuah of Yaakov Avinu. The Shem Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei is shaykh to the Etzem Habriya. And when Yerushalayim was revealed to Yaakov as the Shara Shamayim in Pasuk Yud Zayin, that's because this was the Mokom from which the Hascholas Habriya began. As the Gemara tells us in Yoma, on Daf Nun Daladam and Beis, regarding the Even HaShia, Shemisha Mahushtas HaOlam. So the entire world was created from the Even HaShia, in the Kodesh Kadosh of the Beis Hamikdash. And if that's the place, that's the Tchilas Habriya, then that's the place from which there'll be a Shefa for the entire world. And that's called Shara Shamayim. And the Ramban, in Perek Chav Ches Pasuk Yud Zayin, brings the Pirkei de Reb Elazar regarding Yaakov erecting the Matzeva. It says, "V'samo sov matzeva betoch hamokom, v'yared lo shemen min hashamayim v'yotzei koles." Shemen came down from Shamayim and anointed the matzeva. Shenemar, v'yitzok shemen al rosha. Ma osa Kadosh Baruch Hu notal regel yemino, v'tova es ha'even ad imkei tahomos, v'oso so snif la'oretz ke'adam shenosein snif l'kipa. Lefichach nikreis even shesia sheshamu tabur ha'aretz u'misham niftecha ha'aretz v'yoleh heichal Hashem omed. So this matzeva, which was created, which was transformed, shall we say, into the Even Shesia, and it connected to the beginning of the Bria of the Aretz, and that's where the Eichel Hashem stands. So what was revealed to Yaakov Avinu in the Shem Havaya was something that was shaykh to the Tchilas Habriya. So before Yaakov had this vision, he didn't know about the Shem Havaya. He only knew the Shem Shin Daled Yud, which is the Shem of Hanagaso Yisparach B'Socha Olam HaTeva. He didn't realize what is the status of Yerushalayim, the mile of Yerushalayim, that it belongs to the Tchilas Brias HaOlam, and its Kedusha is a result of the fact that from the Even Shesia, from Yerushalayim, the entire world was created, and from that place we have a Shefa that comes down for the entire world, and that's the Heichal Hashem. Once Yaakov became aware of the Kedusha HaMakom, he realized that it wasn't through the tefillah of the Avos alone that the Makom was sanctified, and therefore he would be allowed to sleep there. But through this Mar Nevuah B'Shem Havaya, he became aware of the fact that the Kedusha HaMakom is Kvir V'Kaimim Mitchilas Brias HaOlam, way before the Avos. At the beginning of creation, this place was sanctified. Miyad immediately, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso, Vayomer Achein Yesh Hashem B'Makom Hazeh V'Anochi Lo Yodati. So it means that if not for this Mar Nevuah, in which Yaakov realized that he had slept in a place that's kadosh, right? It's only because of the Mar Nevuah that he realized this, and therefore his kavanah was to create a matzeva, and then lahashkim lazem miyad im tchilas haboker. So it means like zrizim akdim lemitzvos, like it says vayashkim avram baboker, and the Gemara Psachim says on Daf Daled, what's vayashkim avram baboker? The zrizim akdim lemitzvos. So even though Yaakov Avinu woke up in the morning, as the Ramban says, nevertheless, the pasuk splits it into two. Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso, And that was because of the Mar Nevuah. When Yaakov Avinu wakes up and he declares, Ma Nora Mokom Hazeh, and then Vayashkem Yaakov means Nizdares Livnos Samatzeva. Not that he went back to sleep, but he was, shall we say, inspired to a level of Zrizus to set up this Matzeva, and that's the Vayashkem. Just like by Avram Avinu, it says, Vayashkem. Zriza Makdim L'mitzvahs. So now if you ask, why is Yaakov Avinu building a Matzeva, this is already a step beyond the Mar Nevuah. The Mar Nevuah tells us that this is a Makom Kadosh. Now Yaakov Avinu realizes, because of the Kedushas HaMakom, he's got to build and erect this Matzeva. So the Torah emphasized Vayashkem Yaakov Aboker, and really it's separate from Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso, because now it's connected to Yaakov Avinu's commitment, enthusiasm, and zealous zrizus to build a matzeva. So the matzeva was created. From Matzeva was what was created was the Even Shesiyah that connected to the Tchilas Brias Haaretz, and that's where the Heichal Shem stands. And that's the Hiskalus, what was revealed to Yaakov, the name Havaya, which is shaykh to the beginning of creation. Now, what does Yaakov reveal in this Mara Nevuah? Before the Mara, as we said before, he did not recognize the name Havaya, only the name Shakai. But now, just to reiterate what we said before, he's going beyond the Hanhog of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world of nature, but rather going back to Yerushalayim that begins, the mile of Yerushalayim that's connected to the pre-creation or the moment of creation, and from which Novea called Shefa Shebolio. Now, it says that Yaakov wants to go from Haran and back to Eretz Yisrael. He tells Rachel and Leah exactly what the Malach had said to him. Anochi akel beis kel, asher mashachta sham. So again, we're skipping to Perek Lamed Aleph. Asher mashachta sham matzeva asher nadarta li sham neder. Ata kum tzei min haaretz hazos v'shuv el eretz moladetecha. So Ramban says, what was the reason that he had to go back to Eretz Moladetecha? V'tam, asher mashachta sham matzeva asher nadarta li sham neder. Ki ata nadarta lios oved lashem HaMeyuchad bi Eretz HaNivcheres v'lios lecha ha'even beis Elokim ulahotzi sham masrosecha. In other words, Yaakov should not delay fulfillment of his pledge, otherwise he might incur the wrath of Hashem. And the neder of Yaakov Avinu was that when he will return to his father's house, then v'haya Hashem lila Elokim. So the neder should only be chal when he goes back to Eretz Yisrael, not before that. So how could he incur divine wrath when he hasn't yet returned to Eretz Yisrael? So what's this hakpada that he has to go back to Eretz Yisrael immediately? And furthermore, when the Ramban brings this whole arichus of the neder that Yaakov pledged to serve Hashem, the Shem HaMeyuchad, and that the Evan should be a Beis Elokim, and there he should take off Maasros, there doesn't seem to be any justification as to why in the Neder there was a specification of all these details. It should have said Biofen kloli, as a general sentence, that he should take a neder to return to Eretz Yisrael. And then he could tell his wives that that's why he must return immediately to fulfill that neder without delay. So what's this harichus in the Ramban about all these dimensions of the neder and the avodah to the Shem HaMeyuchad, the Evan should be Beis Elokim, the Masrosov? Why not just take a neder and tell his wives to the effect that he took a neder, he would return to Eretz Yisrael, to Eretz Moladato? Now, you might claim that the Ramban is motivated by answering the question, how is it considered an ichur, a delay, if he doesn't return to Eretz Yisrael immediately to Eretz Moladato? And once he took the neder to serve Hashem HaMeyuchad, then it's considered delaying if he doesn't fulfill that neder immediately. But it doesn't say clearly in the Ramban why exactly he has to return immediately. And the Ramban says, included in the neder of Yaakov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was that he would take maaser from everything. Well, what's so special about taking maaser and dafka in the Mokom HaMikdash? What is it all about? Now the Ramban, later on in Parshas Re'eh, in Dvarim Perek Yud Beis, Pasuk Vav, he explains about the Hotzas Ma'aser B'Yushalayim, v'hizkir gamkein she'avisha maser v'truma she'iten osam lakonim v'lalviyim misharsei hamigdash v'yismechu gam heim imochem v'im batechem kinyan shenemar Pasuk Malachi Heviu es kol hamaser el beis ha'otzar v'hi teref b'veisi uv'chanvani na v'chanuni na bazos Amar Hashem tzvakos im lo eftach lachem es arubos hashamayim v'rikesi lachem bracha ad b'lidah. So the ikar, the main primary reason, is to take these masos, etc., to give it to the Kohanim, to Leviim, the Mishasei Hamikdash. But once again, this reasoning doesn't seem to have any shaychus to Yaakov Avinu. At the time of Yaakov Avinu, there were no Mishasei Elokim in the Beis Hamikdash. So again, we're back to our original question. What was the special dimension of his neder, dafka, to be mafresh maser, b'makom shel Beis Elokim? So let's take a look at the Ramban in his commentary on V'shavti b'shalom el beis avi v'yah Hashem lila elokim. That's Perek Chav Tes, Pasuk Chav Aleph. Says the Ramban, she'inenu t'nai k'divrei Rashi aval hu neder v'inyono im oshuv el beis avi evod Hashem HaMeyuchad be'eretz hanivcheres b'makom ha'even hazos Shetia li lebeis Elokim v'sham otzias hamaser. So, in other words, at that place, there was a chiddush to Yaakov of a certain avoda to serve the Shem HaMeyuchad. That nischadish li Yaakov, this Shem Havaya, which is the Shem that relates to the beginning of the Bria. And the Mokom HaMikdash is the Mokom from which the entire process of Bria began. And therefore, that's where there'll be a scholus of Shem Havaya. So once it was revealed to Yaakov, the place which is the Tchilas HaBria, it was revealed to him also the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashpia shefa el ha'olam. He brings down the shefa through that place. And we refer now to the Ramban in his commentary, in his introduction to Sefer Bereishis. V'kach amru, afilu pilpulin nota shlomo be'eretz Yisrael v'keser haya notan el shlomo chachamaya Vayodea ikar mishisiso shel olam lema mitzion bichlal yofi elokim hofia. Mitzion nishtachlel kol ha'olam kulo ketzad lama nikres even shesia shemimenu nishchas ha'olam. Nishtas ha'olam. Vayishlomo yodea ezehu gid shu holech lachush v'nota olav pilpulin umiyado yaosa peros shekenu omer natatem bahem eitz kol pri. What do we derive? What do we learn from this whole Ramban? The shefa of the world, that affluence, the whatever comes down, comes through that makom from which hushtas ha'olam. And Shlomo Melech with his chachma wanted to know which derech hayaholech, beise derech hayaholech lokush ha'pilpilin. Is kevan shesgal Yaakov inyan shesham hushtas ha'olam. Now for sure, together with this, it was revealed to him that this place is the source of all shefa. And now we understand why dafka there, it's hamakom lahavias hamasa. That's where we should be bringing the masa. Kevan shu hamakar l'shefa ba'olam. That's the source for all wealth that comes down into this world. And Chazal darshan the inyan of masa, that it has a special connection to the ashpas shefa ba'olam al yidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Ramban explains it in Parshat Re'eh, Perik Yud Daled of Sefer Dvarim, Pasuk Chav Beis, Umedrash Chachamim B'Lashon Aser Ti'aser Aser B'Shvil Tishatis Asher Aser Shelo Tischaser. So this is the Makom HaMeyuchad L'Inyan Shefa Hashpas Hashef B'Olam. L'chein HaMakom HaMeyuchad Hazeu Makom HaMigdash. And to add another point about Maser, we're not talking here about Maser Rishon, Maser Ksofim, but rather Maser Sheni. The Ramban explains in Parshas Re'eh, V'yata, now, bi'er ki hu yechayev li'aser kol tvua zaracha, sheyochal oso hu atzmo u'bonav lifnei Hashem l'man tilmad liras Hashem, ki hakonim v'ashoftim ha'omdim sham lifnei Hashem, morei ha'torah, yilamdu yir'oso v'yoru ha'torah v'amitzos. So my Sheni is in order to go up to Yerushalayim to learn Yiras Hashem from the Kohanim and the Shoftim who are there in Yerushalayim. So again, even though at the time of Yaakov, there's no possibility of learning from the Shoftim that are there in Yerushalayim, nevertheless, Yaakov understood by himself that that's the Makom from which Hushtas HaOlam, the entire world, began there. And that's the Makom that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala himself B'Shem Havaya. And therefore it's only there that he could serve Hashem, the Shem HaMeyuchad. Once he understood that place is the place that's Royal Avodas Hashem, and that's where there are these Giluyim, like for example at the time of the Bayis, there was a chiyuv maser in order to learn Yiras Hashem. Therefore, Yaakov even takes a neder that the maser will bring him to Avodas Hashem to come to Hashem to learn how to serve Hashem b'shmo HaMeyuchad. So the entire neder was to immediately come, as soon as the possibility will arise, to serve Hashem b'shmo HaMeyuchad. And there are no other makomos where he could do such. So we understand well why immediately there was a possibility for that as soon as there was a possibility, a window of opportunity that opened up for Yaakov to return to Eretz Yisrael, now he has a chiyuv to be mekayim his neder, because the neder was to serve Hashem HaMeyuchad and to be motzias hamaser sham. And this is what the Ramban interprets: Shaya neder lavod es Hashem HaMeyuchad ulahotzi es hamaser sham. Okay then, thank you so much, and have a great week.